Good evening, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I definitely want to honor the daylight that's outside and the weather that's outside. And so, first, I want to thank everyone for being here. My name is Adam Chirello. That's how you say that long last name that you probably see in some emails and on the website. I am the Director of Secondary Curriculum here for the district. And just to give a little context, this is my 25th year here in Centerville City Schools. I started as a math teacher at Centerville High School in 2000. I was one of the unit principals at Centerville High School for about 4 years. And I've been in the curriculum office for, I'm doing that now, about 8 years. So it's good to see everybody tonight, and pretty excited to talk with you. I just want to share a couple thank yous beyond you being here, but I want to thank Sarah Swan for recording this. Sarah works nonstop to make sure everybody's informed. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. And over here to my left, just coincidentally, they're all together, but you guys can raise your hand and say hi. Brian Miller here, he's the principal here at Watts Middle School. Dewana Coleman. Dewana is our principal at Magzig Middle School. John Wesley, our superintendent. Clint Freeze, our principal at Tower Heights. I do see Seth Rings, who does a lot of work for us over at Magzig as a counselor. Seth. And I want to thank also Allison Hermal, our board members, for being here. So thank you for being here. Hopefully you can hear me. I know there's a lot of rattling and whatnot, so we're going to use the microphone. Tonight, really, what we'd like to do is I would like to share just a little bit more of a presentation. You know, we sent out a video last week. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. I want to give a little bit more information tonight to you pretty quickly in the form of a quick presentation. Might hopefully answer some questions maybe you have coming in, and then we'll definitely open it up for your questions. And you know, if we get to a point, or maybe you're not comfortable asking that in the group, you know, we'll stick around as you know, as we kind of get to a natural conclusion here tonight. When we do get to the Q&A part, although we've talked about it, we haven't quite rehearsed it, but I know our middle school principals want to get in and answer some questions too. So we might look at each other and say, you know, you want to take those, whatever. But we're excited to share some things with you. So as you came in tonight, there is an information sheet. I'm going to be going over most of the information tonight. You know, it's bulleted on that sheet. On the back of that sheet also is just an artifact that we have been using to really drive conversation about what we're doing with our programming in grades 6 through 12. Actually, I would say in grades 6-ish, before grade 6, and then actually after grade 12. And that's a lot of work that we do at the high school. But that's our portrait of an elk. I'll talk about that a little bit. I'm happy to answer questions. But that is, you know, a guiding document that we use here in the district. It was developed 3 years ago with input from community members, parents, students who have a pretty strong voice in it, teachers and administrators. So we're proud of that work. And I just wanted to make sure that you understood what you had there in front of you. And I apologize for how maybe you like it that way. There's some sort of study, people who like how it's copied. I don't know. It was a setting on my printer and it came out that way. It kind of drives me nuts, but maybe somebody in the crowd likes that. But we'll be posting that also to our website. So I want to talk to you tonight about some changes that are coming to our middle school program and schedule next year. But I want to start with the why, and I think it's important for us to understand the context of these changes and kind of the landscape that educational leaders are working with. So the first thing, and we similar to the portrait of an elk, about 4 years ago, we developed our strategic plan for the district. It's a really powerful document, and if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I'd really encourage you to. We have kind of a 2-page synopsis on our website, but the portrait of an elk actually came from this vision for us crafting more of a vision for what we need to be doing in our programming. But it started here with our strategic plan. And, one of the most important things, and you'll hear it here, you'll see, some branding around this, but our mission to empower, challenge, and support every learner to grow every day. And, we start a lot of our meetings, Mr. Wesney starts a lot of our meetings, reminding everyone, this is where we are. We go back to this document for a lot of decision making. So it is an important piece and, helps us sometimes ground our decision making. Other factors, instructional time. We really, over the years, have I've been in this position, like I said, for about 8, 9-ish years at this point. As soon as I hopped in this position, recall, I came from the high school. I had a lot of middle school teachers saying, look, 41 minutes in some of our classes is really difficult. And as we go through things like math adoptions and other things, anywhere where we could grab additional instructional time, since I've been in this position, we want to look at that, and really was a request that I've received quite a bit from staff as far as getting curriculum, going deeper into topics, etc. So that's a driving factor. State mandates. One of the things that I just want to drive home is we continue to get a large number of mandates passed down. Sometimes I wonder if the state thinks we have 15 hours in a school day. But nevertheless, these are things that we have to be doing. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of what we are trying to address. And this will come up in the presentation a couple times with some of these changes. We have some students, and this was phased in. So we have students in our 5th grade that are on what we call reading improvement plans. Students are placed on reading improvement plans when they do not pass the Ohio State test in 3rd grade, and they continue on in 4th grade and 5th grade. Any student that is in that category, and they're called reading improvement plans, or short, as everything has acronym, RIMS, are required 30 to 50 minutes of instructional time beyond English language arts 3 to 5 times a week. And so that's one thing that next year we're going to have our first cohort coming to each one of our buildings. And we need to build time and resources in for that. The following year, we'll get a second cohort. And by 3 years from now, we'll have 3 cohorts of students who need to be receiving those services on a regular basis. We also have, a while ago, about 3-4 years ago, state required districts to screen all students for dyslexic tendencies. So we have another kind of bucket of students who display dyslexic tendencies. Those students need specific reading intervention, and we need to provide them. We had our first cohort of those students show up at each of our middle schools this year in the 6th grade. They require a different set of instructional strategies and services. And we've been using some time in our day to help patch that together. But as we look at having another cohort next year and a 3rd cohort the following year, that really, our current solution isn't necessarily sustainable. Career education. The state, for a long time, the state allowed us to apply for what's called a waiver, but there's been a state mandate on career education, career exploration, and I would really say at the middle schools, it's more kind of a strengths-based exploration. 30 minutes basically a week, or it's 30 hours a year. It's about a half an hour or a period a week, most of the school year, that we need to start incorporating. The waiver is no longer a thing. We need to be reporting when we're doing this thing. And I guess I want to pause for a second as I'm talking about this. I don't always I'm telling you these as things that we need to be considering. How do we do this with our resources, and what does that look like in a day for students? I don't necessarily believe that those things are bad, right? I think there's a lot of good, and we need to be doing those. The question is, how do we do that with waning resources at this point? So these are driving factors as we're trying to look at what are we currently doing? How can we do things maybe differently. One of the things that we are seeing more and more of, which is a good problem in some ways, is that we have more and more accelerated students. We have students who are 2-3 times accelerated in mathematics and in other subject areas. Without getting into the weeds too much, right now in our current organization, that causes challenges in our scheduling, and students who are twice or 3 times accelerated in our programming end up basically we don't have a place for them later in their day. They may be accelerated for a little while, and then they get to a point where all of their peers are in math class. But they took their math class at Centerville High School, and we really don't have a solution for that because all teachers are teaching at that time. And so we wanted to try to address the fact that we have a growing number of students during our school day that get to a certain point in their schedule and really sit in our library for a period. These are often our students who are, like I said, are accelerated in their programming, and we believe that it's not a great use of their time, but we'd like to look at how we could expand that learning time to serve them and continue their growth. In addition to that, I would just talk about general flexibility in a schedule. There are some fantastic things, and I want to make sure that as I talk about this tonight, our middle school program has been fantastic for a very long time. But just like anything that you're probably experiencing in your work, house, and world, things are changing, and people expect certain levels of flexibility, which is, I think, can be a very good thing. Our current system and schedule doesn't have a lot of that baked into it, so that's definitely a consideration. And the last thing, and I'm happy to say that what we are sharing with you really has grounds in what I would call fiscal responsibility. What I'm sharing with you tonight, we are basically doing with the current staff that we have. So you're going to see that we're adding a ton of services, a lot of flexibility, opportunities that don't currently exist for our students, and we're doing it with our current resources. So that's an important piece to this. I will just do a footnote about this. I'm just going to move on. I think a lot of people are aware, we embarked on a number of levy campaigns to get to where we are financially. We think we're in a good place. We are working on our projections and the numbers and operating in that fiscally responsible space. And at the same time, nationally, federally, some things are kind of up in the air, and honestly, some of the things for us at the state level. So we've got to try to operate with a lot of parameters, and I'm excited to say that what you're going to see tonight keeps us, within what we projected as in our budget, and basically have not changed in that same range right here. So those are definitely driving factors for what we're talking about tonight. Just a brief bit of history real quick here. Our current middle school model, or the philosophy, I'm going to back up and say our philosophy around our middle school program has been around for nearly 40 years. And what I wanted to share with you is a lot of work has been done and research has been done in this week's philosophy, doctrine, I guess. And this book has gone through many iterations over the last 4 years. But this has been an anchor for how we have organized our middle schools. Now, that's gone through a couple iterations. As a matter of fact, as I did some research, we kind of have a resident middle school expert with us here, Dr. Henderson, who I still see on a regular basis, who attended middle school here. He kind of talked to me about some of the things that we're sharing tonight are actually going back to how it was originally planned. It went through some iterations. It then morphed into what we have today. And some of the things that we're talking about really take us back to how it originally was organized. Important pieces of this model: family, pod, or a team model, an advisory program where students have an advisor, they stay with that advisor throughout the program, And really baked into this, and it's very much research based, is students benefit when we provide collaboration time for teachers. And so that's an important piece to the new model. So we're going to talk about some of these changes, and I'm sure there'll be some questions afterward. I'm going to hit, I think, some of the things, or some of the highlights, maybe some of the questions here. Currently, I think people would say, or kids would say that it's a 7-period day. There's a noon hour in there, there's a lunch period in there that aren't counted in those 7 periods. I would say if you counted noon hour or lunch, et cetera, you kind of have an 8-period day. That's how our high school operates. Our high school has 7 periods in the day, but one of those periods is lunch, so students participate in 6 academic periods. So it's a little semantic, but moving forward, we're going to operate on an 8-period day. Currently, each period is 41 minutes. So we're increasing that instructional time, that time with their teacher, to 48 minutes, right? Doing the math, right, that's 35 more minutes a week in each one of those classes, and expanding that instructional time. We commandeered that time from the noon hour. I'll talk about that here in a second. I know there was some concern about that. We will move from the current family pods model to a grade level family model, where all the teachers who have that grade band will have a common plan time. Currently, plan time for our teachers is built around content time, but those teachers don't necessarily have the same students. So in this model, our teachers who are working with our 6th graders are all kind of together. They can talk about and coordinate all kinds of things, whether it's with lessons, homework, tests, concerns that maybe that teachers are seeing about a student. That's the wraparound idea. It comes from this, we believe, and is an important part of the new model moving forward. And the last piece is we're introducing a course that students will all take called in various forms called the Portrait of an Elk course. And again, this is part of the reason why I shared the portrait with you. There are 5 competencies in there: adaptability, communication, critical thinking, empathy, and tech literacy. And I think it's probably the best outline that I can give you right now of it, but I do want to just share, and we literally worked on this course today. We had some teachers out who are going to be teaching this course next year, and we were laying out the standards, ELA standards, English language arts standards, technology standards, and career and strengths opportunities. I'm sorry, opportunities for us. How that would look in this format of this course. So I want to be clear about this. The portrait class, I think there was some questions about, like, is that just a study hall? It will not be a study hall. It's going to start based on English language standards. It's going to infuse technology skills that we believe are important. It's important in our Portrait of an Elk. State of Ohio just released February last month, new technology standards for all grade levels. And I hope on some level we can agree that these are the skills that students need. We are working with our technology office and outside sources to talk about what do those skills, age appropriate skills for students in grades 6 through 8, and building their capacity to help them in things like research or all the phases of writing. So we are in development stage of that, but students will take that course in some form. And I'll talk about that when we get there. Let me just talk real quick about the noon hour and the study hall concept. Currently, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but currently students will, opposite their lunch, either before or after, they will participate in what we call noon hour. Noon hour is the time where we currently are having students participate in band, course, orchestra. If they're and they do that, not on an everyday basis, but many days they will. Students, when they're not in that, or if they don't participate in that, report to their noon hour, and it is, for lack of a better word, it's kind of a study hall period. We did some analysis of this, and as we look, and again, this is where we move time back to the classrooms. We believe that's a more efficient use of instructional time. And I think of this from the standpoint that I was a math teacher, if I'm teaching a student and we're working on some things, we went over the lesson, we're now into our homework, we're now into doing the math and getting our hands dirty in that math. That bell rings at 41 minutes and they leave. And I'm hoping that 2 hours from now, after lunch, after recess, they show up at noon hour. They realize, oh, I've got some math homework. I open my book back up. I finally get there. I believe there's, and I think we believe that there's a decent amount of instructional time that's lost. What we're trying to do is get that time back to our teachers in the moment of learning. In the moment, while they have access to the teacher, I guess I should note that students don't necessarily have access to their teachers during the noon hour. It is really kind of more of a study hall. So we think that that's an effective use of that time and keeps that transition, minimizes that transition from the moment of learning to when students are working in that subject or in that content. I think so I think that that's just important to note. One of the concerns I know is potentially about amounts of homework. And just like with any change that we do across the board, my office, our leadership, we actually bring a lot of teachers in on our curriculum teams. We're going to have to get some different guidance about, how it looks without having that new network. And we're committed to doing it. So we definitely want to honor the activities that kids being kids. And so I know that there was some concern about that, but I really do believe that this will benefit students in their learning and in our instructional time. Run down this, I think I've spoken about most of these. But again, what we see here with this change is opportunities. Without hiring staff, we will have math support, multiple sections of reading support at every school, at every grade level, which is currently not a reality. Serving for our accelerated students. They shouldn't be sitting around in a class period, in a library. We're building flexibility in the schedule. They can take, their class at Centerville High School, come back and have a full schedule that day. They can participate in band coursework. Technology standards. We've been working with our staff on that. As a matter of fact, if we looked at those today, people are like, we do a decent amount of those. It's not that we're not doing them, but we're going to be a lot more purposeful and targeted in the delivery of those standards. And that had a good feel to it today as we worked on them. Career and strengths. I'm going to focus on strengths exploration. Really, a lot of the stuff that we've worked with, or the resources that we think will help provide support here, have to do with what are your strengths? What do you like? Are you, creative? It's more along the personality test. Are you analytical? Are you creative? Are you a practical thinker? What tasks do you like to do? What are some jobs? What are interests that maybe you would be interested in based on the strengths and competencies that you naturally have? And again, this increased instructional time. I guess I should mention one more time a major change for the folks in performing arts is that band, chorus, and orchestra would then be a period that the students would just report to each day. It wouldn't be during the noon hour. Students who were participating in band will attend band every day. If I'm making this up, but if I'm in seventh grade and the second period is my band, we will perform second period. So we're excited about that opportunity. I know our performing arts groups are too. So
if they don't participate in band or orchestra, where do they go?
Sure. Good question. I was going to go there. So There are a couple, there's some flexibility here, so I'm going to just use the general rule. Oh, I'm sorry. If a student does not participate in band, chorus, orchestra, what do they do? So, for students who don't participate in band, chorus, orchestra, that portrait class that I'm talking about, they will have the entire school year. What? Students who participate in band, chorus, or orchestra are participating in music programs. So we have a separate rotation. Currently, they participate in PE, art, music, and health. All students do in a rotation of their school year. Students who are in band, chorus, or orchestra will not participate in music during that rotation, and they will go to a portrait class. So we swap that out. It will be a compacted version of that. And we're working with that, but we feel confident that that'll be, we will hit the big rocks there and really hit those technology standards. So the critical thing for this is called portrait of an episode. Yes.
So for that explanation, you're having a course, if you're not in performing arts, you get a whole year of instruction, which would be more in depth than students that are given performing arts to get it for a reduced portion of it. So then how do you actually grade them or determine whether they've actually learned anything because you have a student that gets a whole year of material versus a student who gets.
Sure. So the question is, I want to paraphrase this. You have students who are going to take the full year-long course, the portrait course.
But for me,
Sure.
performing arts is the choice if they don't do it.
Performing arts is the choice.
But you're telling us now, portrait of an elk is mandatory, everybody has to take it. But if we're in performing arts, we get half a year rather than everybody else who get a full year.
You would get a rotation, yes, of that.
7 weeks. 7 weeks.
8 weeks for at Watts and a quarter at Magazine and Tower. So what I would say to that is, we're working on consolidating that to what we would say would be the big rocks or the focus standards of that. Would students get a little bit more in depth? Absolutely. But we would be compacting there. We do this in a couple different walks, and it's a little bit our students' first foray into some elective courses, right? This happens in different ways. Students have different experiences all through secondary in a couple different ways. I feel confident that we would hit those standards and in those major competencies in those rotation courses as well as the year long. And it'll look a little different. It just will. So yes. So okay, sorry. Will it meet the state mandated time for career exploration? Is that what you're asking? Yes. We use that. The way the ELA standards are constructed, you can swap different things out. We're going to look at the infotech standards. Career exploration can be used as a vehicle to teach those standards. Not necessarily, okay, I'm going to do career education, and then I'm going to do the standards, and then it's the infusion of the combination of those. And because many of these standards are kind of process based, and it's not we can use different vehicles for those standards, if that makes sense. Sure. Sure. So again, I would answer that in saying, with the extension of the periods, that time, we'll be working with teachers on providing time to work.
But what about the kids that are in bands that won't be in that?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, we would have to work on that with our staff. The idea, though, is again to have that in that moment of learning, time for the students to work. Yes.
based on patient needs, sounds like we're integrating a lot of this in students that are accelerated. We're going to course. So that to me is the outliers of the students not reporting. I have a student who is not in any of those groups. She's also an athlete, so she's not in any course during the school day. Sure. That's to me, like, if they're able to take this report of that portrait of an elf, why can't all students do it?
Yeah.
So they give this.
Sure. Yeah. So,
We're accommodating those students, why are we not accommodating the board?
so I think we are accommodating all students. Here's what I would say, that currently,
I would see it, please show of hands right now, a lot of this. That's sports league.
Sure. Sure.
So if a student is participating in season and at the basketball team or volleyball team, they can just give out a option. Because they are in physical education and there's one of their.
So,
Sure.
sure. And I'm happy to talk more about this. One, physical education is required during the school day for all students.
But in high school, they're allowed to take track.
In K through 8 programming, they're required to take physical education. Okay. Secondly, I hear you. I am the father. I am the father of a graduate from Centerville City Schools. She was, on the varsity soccer team, on the varsity basketball team. High performer that way. I'm very in tune with what you're asking, and I think what's important is that we will be working with our staff on those practices, the homework practices that I think that we're worried about. I hear you on that, and I believe that time will be translated to the classroom, and I see it as being similar to. Sure. Yeah, I understand. So,
So for just focus on
no, so the standards aren't, the standards aren't necessarily built around typing, and I would encourage I'm not gonna go over all those, but a lot of the current standards for 6th through 8th grade in technology have to do with utilizing your resources, your technology resources, whether it's search, whether it's even things like AI, use ethical use of those technologies, understanding and source vetting for research and understanding when I'm on a site or I'm looking something up for a class, whether it's a credible source. So we'll be working on those type of standards. There's a number of them, but those would be a few just right off the bat, where students will be doing some argumentative writing in there, which is tied to ELA standards, and as part of that, would likely do some research and embedded in there. And this is what I want to continue to state. It's really the infusion. It's the intersection of those ELA standards, technology standards, and career standards, where we're going to try to meet those. Yeah.
As a technology, it's just technology standards, which is vaguely, there's really no definition about. Why is there no emphasis on teaching the children to type other than just AI? I know in high school, my high schoolers, I have two, and a middle schooler, I've had two. There's no typing in Centerville. I researched it. I reached out to the guidance counselor. There's no course that even remotely goes over it because I wanted mine to be in typing. And they still don't know. I asked elementary and they said, well, they have tech time. And then after that, they don't have any other, at that point, at least, had any other typing type class. I'm telling you now, my fifth grader who types. I'm pretty sure it's probably all the rest of them do. And there's no actual instruction for typing. It sounds like this is a great opportunity to teach typing.
Yeah, so the question, I'm not sure if everybody here had to do with, will it be, is there a possibility for us to look into typing skills as part of that? I think that's something that we're in process of looking at what can be embedded in the schools.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's important to clarify. We'll teach the format class.
Correct.
The ELA period together. And now I'm ELA and portrait taught by the still in a row.
So it could be of two different teachers, but yes, the portrait class will be taught by an ELA teacher.
Okay, together, like, okay. Then my other question is, what if I'm trying to band and chorus? That's not a possibility anymore?
So band and chorus and orchestra all happening in the same period.
Right.
So that would be something that the teachers could work out and would be a possibility.
Full.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna go right up here.
So with this new, the elk court, is it a graded court? And how looking at that, well, my child in band, again, it has utilized the study time for the study hall. Will not longer have that, and then we get 7 minutes to do everything, they won't have the same kind of help or instructions. Really, if it's graded, it's how it's going to impact him not having that full period that the rest of the students would.
Yeah, I think our intention is to have it graded, but it would be like any other
Is it
course.
or is there a numerical grade? Is it graded at all? Or is it just
Yeah, so our grade book's typically set up for a numeric grade. And so it would be received as a numeric grade. Those grades, obviously, they're reported to you as a indicator of their progress.
So my band can only get to 7 minutes. We'll have to, if that takes 7, then start to 1 week, we'll have the same grade at 5 that everybody else will take it for the entire year.
It'll be graded, and
You'll have to have it at an accelerated rate, right? Because we're not gonna have the same amount of time that the rest of the students do.
I think, here's what I would say is that we're gonna compact that and it won't be as, you know,
And then they're missing some of the other instruction that the other kids are getting.
you're gonna miss, at times, some of the pieces. But again, the big rocks, we would, accomplish. Sorry, I'm gonna go up there and then, yeah. Sure. Sure.
By the way, still off. Okay, so my answer is no. Expand on a portion that you're in it, that you're not going to figure it out. And you're seeing it going over in there, and I'm trying to. Where I.
Yeah. Yeah, so, your student, you're concerned about them participating in a portrait in the ELA standards. Compressed. Yeah. Yeah, so we got together today with our ELA staff, who's helping us design the portrait. And, we broke those into standards that we believe will be managed. Students will all still have an ELA class. And I think what's important to also know, we've been working, works more into this version, is that in the family model, we see our social studies also playing an important role. We've been working with our social studies teachers and helping deliver some of those also writing standards and reading standards. And so we see that as a coordinated effort that we are supplying time to coordinate that effort on a regular basis in that family model with those teachers.
That,
Right.
That they're gonna miss out on that portion, which is 7 weeks.
And I'm concerned it may have tax.
Yeah, we share that. And what we believe as we are working through this is that, that related arts, part of that will be more concentrated in those ELA standards.
And then they
Yes, yeah. And we'll be doing, we will expand, we do have an advisory program. The portrait is not just going to only house that strengths and interest piece. So we'll leverage that. I think one of the things that, again, I would just like to share is that the way that we're currently, we are looking to construct the day in the teams is it allows for just a lot more collaboration across the different subject areas, advisories, our advisory program. So I feel confident that we'll get the career exploration, the strengths exploration in. I'm not as worried about that. We, again, and if you look, we will continue to message, and it was on the presentation that, it starts with ELA standards. That's, we're prioritizing there and building. Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so there's a concern about losing community. I think what you're talking about there is the grouping piece.
gangs with all owners. Even multi-unit advisory, whether it's one perspective or one before.
Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time talking about that. The way that we have set things up is that there is still potential for movement. So we're going to live that by these grade level teams. There is the ability for the teachers to move with the cohorts. And so that's something that we're working through. I think the other thing that I would just share is that advisories will stay with the same advisor once we make the transition. And we spent a lot of time talking about advisory and that looping aspect and advisory and just looping in general. I'm sorry, the multi-grade band advisories, that's where I was going. And a couple things. One, there is some mentorship there, and we talked about a lot of the curriculum for things like advisory, like our Character Strong program, is divided by grade band. And so we see some opportunities to do grade specific. I'm a sixth grader coming to Chuka Middle School for the first time. I'm an eighth grader transitioning to the high school. Having those lessons and being able to execute that in advisory was important. We also talked about, as a matter of fact, trying to identify, we do this at the high school, student leaders who can act as mentors, maybe creating like brother sister advisories that with older grade and work with that. So those are some things in the works right now. Yes. Sure. So, so math is going to be, it just depends on what math students are in, but most of it will happen within that team. Advanced probably goes out. Yeah, so there's kind of like a floater math teacher. So how it's designed is there's kind of a core group of teachers at each grade level. And then what we're calling a multi-grade team that helps supplement those as needed, based on the student schedule and different programming. I can hear you.
I don't know if this was asked, I can't hear people from up here, but, so for the end of course, kiddos will have the 7 week. So my question is, if they can meet these state standards in that amount of time, why did the rest of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. One of the things that we are trying to do is build this in a way that keeps that meaningful for them. And I hear you on the study hall. It's something that we can take back. Today, it's, we're working through the design. Again, I guess I would say there's some just different opportunities if you take a year-long course. We have kids who take some different electives. Actually, when we were first started looking at this, there were some ideas for like doing some different elective, like students would choose different electives. We stuck with this idea because I think we were wanting a more consistent experience for our kids. And so it will be a little different. And it's not necessarily just about meeting those standards. I think sometimes it's about also pushing when we have the opportunity to push. Not to where we're trying to stress students out. Again, we're very cognizant. I mean, I have experts here who have been very cognizant. I think our middle school staff always blows me away with their depth of knowledge of students and their development at this age. So I think there's just opportunity. And I think our staff is in tune, and we will continue to message that with our staff, that we need to be in tune with those changes and the burdens and the students who are involved in all of the things. I think they are cognizant of that. And it's a great time for us to have increased conversation about what is an appropriate amount of work, what we've done during the class, how do we adjust our instructional practices to best serve students. So, I will take that. We will take this back and we'll talk about it. Let's see what we do.
So what I
Yeah.
and on that so when I talk about this is going to allow more collaboration with nature. Why do we have to change the way they assign homework or tests or anything like that? I would like more of a, we're not going to guide the teachers, it's going to be a we. Not have such homework. You need to limit the amount of homework. You need to collaborate with each other. We're testing one day and put that more pressure. I don't want homework advice to us that you're going to force them
So this is my 20th year of class as a principal, so I have observed a lot of years of middle schoolers, young adolescents, and I can tell you the noon hour is really a lot of wasted time. It's inefficient time. For band, orchestra, chorus, by the time they get set up, I mean, they may have 25 minutes by the time they get there, when they come in from recess. So I would take credit for advocating for the performing arts being a class, because I think that is important to be part of their schedule, not just trying to fit it in where it fits in the school day. So one, number two, I have surveyed teachers and we will work on the homework, but the rule is kind of 10 minutes per grade. So yeah, an eighth grader could have an hour and a half of homework, and that is what the recommendation is. That is what the research says. Whether they have activities out of school or not, that's the recommendation. But I've surveyed the teachers. I've told them we need to streamline homework already. Let's take a look at that. Also, with the 48 minutes, an adolescent's attention span is about 10 to 15 minutes at a stretch. So direct instruction should not be more than 15 to 20 minutes. The rest of that time they should be doing whether independent work, group work, collaborating, and then that's a chance for the teacher to check in with them. In study hall, sometimes they have a teacher does not even know what content they're covering. They may not even have them in class. So they really can't be supportive and helpful during that time. And then light speed really blows up at noon hour because when students do have their work done, then they're looking for other things to do with their time. And like today, like there were students trying to go visit friends, walk around to other places because they did get their work done in class. So I hear you. Those special cases where maybe your child really is taking that much time to do schoolwork, please reach out. For the WADs, reach out to me because I really want to understand that because the teachers are really trying to say like, they get their work done in class, they do not have much out of class time. So if that's a parent who's struggling with that at home, I would love to talk to you and help you work through a process to reduce the homework. So that is definitely a priority. And it always has, and that's always been my parameter for that. So I'm excited after 20 years because we are really band-aiding on things to support students, and where we can build it into the schedule, I think is a great thing. And so I got to say, I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about those opportunities. And again, I would want my child to have that 48 minutes. So then if they're in math and they need help with the content, they have their teacher there, just not sitting in the study hall with a teacher who may not know that content. So that's just my point. But again, if you have questions or concerns, some parents have called me already, and I put them on the calendar next year, and I said, I'm going to call you, I'm going to check in with you. And so please, I want to hear from parents if you have concerns as we get started, and we'll work through that. So thank you for being here, and here is Mrs. Coleman.
Hi, everybody. So I'm a mom too, so I hear your concerns about student athletes. I had a pre-professional dancer, and what I did notice is this. So I know the schedule's changing. I've kind of walked through this before, and I know we're really worried about, are our kids really going to have time? Because my daughter had 7 hours of dance after she got done, 3 hours of gymnastics. So as I walk through that as a parent and a principal, I have been talking to our staff about, hey, anxiety is real, right? Our kids are perfectionists. So what are ways that we can collaborate as teams or as a family to help reduce that? So we will work through that so we can decrease the amount of homework they have. And when I say decrease, not so much about the amount, is that when we're giving it to them. All right, the teachers are going to allow the kids time, and maybe even reduce the amount of homework based on the rigor that they are increasing within the classroom. I think that this schedule as a whole is awesome for all students, not just for our upper or our lower kids, but for everyone, because they actually get to see the teacher who is the expert in that subject area. I also heard people ask a question about 7 or 8 weeks in the portrait class. And why are the kids sometimes, like if you have band or orchestra, you only need it for 7 weeks? Well, research says that if you are in band, orchestra, high levels of sports, your executive functioning skills are really amazing, right? You can organize, you can problem solve pretty quickly, you can do those things. So those kids that are performing at those high levels all the time don't need as much time to get concepts as long as students don't have those executive skills. What you find research-based is, and you know your kids, is that your kids who are performing at that level, they do know how to organize. They do know how to manage time, and they typically pick up on concepts really quickly. So shortening that portrait class will not be an issue for them because most likely they are going to get those things 4 to 5 times faster than a typical kid. Does that make sense? Right. If you allow them to typically pick up a lot quicker and they move a lot faster. And so it's not that they're getting less information, they're getting that information in bigger chunks and they can process it quicker. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Kids were athletes, and we couldn't get that past in 8 weeks. Why do we? They take, why can't athletes take the class in 8 weeks and then get a 7? I think that's the.
But it wasn't this class, because was it ever discussed with me, hey, you could use this as a rotation? Like it was, they had 2 rotations in gym, so could it have been, utilized that way versus my daughter's coming up for chorus, but I'm like, I don't want her to use the chorus in middle school. If she's taking chorus, that doesn't seem like a good use of her time in middle school to me, to have 5 days a week for 3 years of chorus when she should be maybe doing something more academically focused.
Yeah, I think, yes, we've talked about a lot. With this, we do have obviously, we have a nutrition version of it, versus year. I think, we see opportunity in that time. If I'm just being honest, like, there are some logistics, staffing, concerns that we have to think about. How do we pull off course during the period? So, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds there, but some of that comes down to who do we have? Do we have staff to do that? And we have to provide enough seats, right, for all students every period. And so I think it's a fair conversation about the concern about study hall. And we can talk about that. We can take that back. But I think more than anything, I think people here, and I'll let Clint speak too, having that structured time is pretty important in middle school. It doesn't mean it has to be like go, 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 go. But maximizing the time, giving students opportunities to use their brain in productive ways, right? It is just important, and we see that as an opportunity. I believe, and I want to echo a little of what Brian said. We've been talking about this. We had to get some things under our belt and make sure that we were understanding certain aspects of this since September. Okay, so there's been a lot of thought in this. We didn't get past the November to understand what our staffing was going to look like for the following year and to think about how we would address this with that. So, but we've been having a lot of conversations, and I do believe because I work with them all the time. And I'm just blown away by our middle school staff, all of our staff. Our middle school staff is in tune. And I think they're very open to this feedback and your concerns. It'll be shared. It's this, this is a listening and conversation session. And things are very much in process. And so as a result, like, there is still opportunity for feedback. You know what? We may live this for a while and make some adjustments. We're not chiseling everything into stone. So I think it's important that we are listening, and I want to communicate that we are, and that there is opportunity for us to maybe make some adjustments. But most importantly, I'd like to say that I believe our staff understands your concerns, and that we work towards them to make sure that students are successful. Yeah.
Could you speak for a minute? I think there's a lot of parents here, myself included, that have a current middle schooler. What is this going to look like in the transition period for our existing 6th graders or 7th graders? Are they going to have some, if the family system obviously doesn't fit into this model, which Are they gonna have some of the same teachers for a sixth grader next year, and then will they keep that grade level family going into eighth grade? What's gonna happen to the advisories? Because those aren't gonna be multi-grade. Like, what does this look like for our remaining 1 or 2 years for existing kids?
I would just share that we are currently, like today, literally, we're building the master schedule for next year. So we'd be very thoughtful in that transition in those placements. We're gonna start working on that transition, but I'll let Brian talk about that.
Thank you. Just real quick on the homework. So already, I'm like, oh, the grade band team, this team of teachers will all have planning time together. So I'm already like, if there's a test on Friday, hey team, let's maybe Thursday night know that they have a test, so let's plan around that. Or maybe we don't have 5 projects going on together at the same time. Maybe we space that out over time. So like, I know exactly what I'm hearing, like, yes, so I'm already having those conversations. Let's be thinking about what that looks like and how that looks different. But having those teams meeting and planning together, then yes, that gives me the chance to say, hey, what's homework looking like? You know, what's that look like across each grade? And then with the transition, which is a great question. So yes, some students may have different teachers. Some could have different advisors. However, what we're going to do is, like, for example, if you have a 7th grade advisory next year, your current 6th grade advisees, I will make those connections. So where I can in the schedule, we will continue to connect kids with the teachers they had. So there will be some different teachers for that first transition year, but really I look at it like the 6th graders, they haven't looped, so like they're used to kind of the elementary model of changing teachers. Incoming 5th graders, they'll be okay. They'll be okay with that model. 7th graders, yes, we do worry about because they've had those teachers for 2 years. But again, we will try to keep those connections in place. And then the grade band, it is built so they can just follow from grade to grade. So Watts is like, we are passionate, I know the others, about the looping concept, about the relationship. Adam knows very well that, like, that's a passion. But it's built so they can stay with those same teachers
So
over time.
the sixth grader next year is going to have a 7th grade team, which then the following year will become an 8th grade team.
Yes, like that is, like, that's what the teachers are very much like, let's make sure they value that.
And I'm gonna use my former teacher voice here. And first of all, Adam, I want to commend you for working tirelessly to come up with a model to meet the changing requirements that is in education. It is constantly evolving their requirements, and I think a lot of them are very good. I come here tonight as a middle school parent and also a former middle school teacher. In fact, 26 years ago, I started in this very building teaching science. And it quickly became apparent to me the beauty of the middle school learner and the need of the middle school learner. You know, they're too old for elementary. They're too young for high school. They are expressed in several different ways their desire for independence, but yet they don't wander too far away from home. Okay? And so that predictable and dependable learning environment is best suited for that middle school student that is really stuck in the middle. It's a rough time in their life. And so what is carried on today to this day, and it may be changing a little bit, is the looping piece. And that as teachers, we had the benefit of having all 3 grade level of kids. It's a true partnership and relationship that we work with the same group of kids all the way through. And we as teachers work with one another. So at least once a week, we could have those conversations about since we share the same kids, who's really succeeding, who is struggling, and who might have a change of circumstance that they can't help, that we need to know about. That was the beauty. That, to me, that is the cornerstone, the anchor of middle school. And so moving forward, I hope Well, as a teacher, I knew my kids. I'd like to say they knew me, but just as important, I knew their families, and their families had the opportunity to know me. And that is a true partnership moving forward. And so I hope, and I highly encourage, I heard the word potential for looping and whatnot, that there is a commitment moving forward to maintain a looping model within our middle school model. Perhaps that sixth grade team, I've heard this, could follow the kids to the seventh grade, the seventh then to the eighth grade, so that there is a predictable and dependable learning environment for kids that are in the middle. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Shane. The two things that I'm hearing you saying is communication and relationships. And when we start thinking about the middle grades, I've been doing this, I guess I've been senior for 29 years. When we start thinking about the middle grades, that's where it starts. It starts with building those relationships, and it starts with the communication aspect of families. And all those things with our incoming sixth graders are going to start happening because our counselors have already started going over to the elementary schools. And we're already starting that process of that communication from elementary up to the middle grades. The other aspect that I hear a lot of in the concern, and I'm going to go back to the homework again, and I believe the three of us are very committed to making sure that during our lunch, students are going to have a little more choice than they've had in the past. During our lunchtime, we normally make the students leave the cafeteria with about 10 minutes left so that we can prep the cafeteria and get ready for the next group that's going to come in. And the three of us have talked as middle school principals, and we are going to be allowing students to stay inside if they choose to. We would love to get them outside. I want to get a kid outside on a day like today when it's 75 degrees outside. But there's going to be opportunity for them, which they don't have today, to bring their work down with them to the cafeteria, to use that time during their lunchtime if they want to, depending upon what their needs are. And so we start looking at this, we start looking at the needs-based theory upon what each individual child needs. I hate to use the same word twice, but it really will come down to the specifics of your child. And I hear this again and again, and I hear this from our two principals. It is amazing how you as a principal know all of your kids in your building. Because we take our relationship seriously with each of our kids and with each of our parents.
You've been so patient.
Involving parents. Because the way you roll it out, it sounds like it's the guy and guy. Like, what's the point? Our voice won't matter. So I just want to know, any of our voices. But what change are we gonna see? Because obviously, we're very upset about the change, and we have what's going on while teachers chatter about it instead of hearing it directly from your mouth, so we can advise our children, not you guys, not. So, will there be change available, or is this basically how it's gonna be?
So
Like, for the counselors, because that's gonna be the next, will help for training.
So, I'll address. So I wanna just share with you that this is, it is, a complex rollout. And it's tricky in the sense that, you know, having well, let me start with this. We will take this feedback. It's part of what we're talking about. We're in process with some of these things. And so I do believe, as we talk to staff, that the feedback you're giving me, and I orchestrate those meetings with our staff, I will share it. I mean, I'm regularly in meetings with our staff, talking about our programming, talking about our teaching practices. I think it will be open. And so I'm going to talk about it. The assurance is I'm giving you my word. It's here. We're recording it. And
Already stated,
so I understand that. What I would just share with you is that, we have certain things that we have to address as a district.
that's always been state requirements. There have always been classes for special children and reading and dyslexia. There's always been.
Yeah.
And then having probably teaching us more technology already.
Sure.
It's not a class that's necessary. Technology, we is very hard. I have to sit at night in front of a Magia, computer when they can all see it.
Okay. So
I've got a 12-year-old at home on a Friday night trying to do homework at midnight.
okay. Here's what I'm sorry. Sure.
And that's part of the problem. And none of the parents have had. What's the matter? It's
Okay. So
that's what it is.
I'll respond to that, and I'm happy to talk with the guys afterwards, and because we are running long, and I want to make sure that I answer questions. I'll just respond by saying this. Again, been doing this for a long time. The mandates have changed. I'm not throwing the state on the bus. They continue to add those to us. We also have been through a period of time since 2008 where, and again, I'm just going to talk real because I want to do that, where we've had to reduce. And over the years, we mentioned this, where it seems like we're doing a lot of these things for kids on the side. I want to reinforce that that we aren't losing any programming for our students. They're still engaging in world language. They're still going to have a music class, art classes, all the things. But what we needed to address, because since 2008, we've torn our services away from those edges. That's what we've done to preserve this model. That's been a long period of administrative decisions with finances and all kinds of things considered. And again, I'm not trying to burden anybody with that. If we want to talk that, I'm happy to talk about that. But the reality is, we used to have 3 gifted intervention specialists at each one of our buildings. I fought like crazy to get one who does a heck of a job for us, who travels to all 3 of our buildings. She does an amazing job. We trimmed those services from that side. When we were going through some additional challenges, we trimmed some support services from the other side. And we were trying to give teacher support, and we were trying to push that in and trying to do things like co-serving. It is tough on our staff to the point where I would argue we're doing a pretty good job in that middle area. But I am challenged. We are challenged. All of us are challenged with depleting resources and maybe having to take a look at how we can do some things differently. And I understand 100%. I understand the trying to bring people in. I would encourage you, if you know anybody who works at the schools, I try to be the most inclusive person as I can be. There's also a challenge with this, though, because I heard in the same sentence, like this isn't thought out, but we want, we're trying to work through this cycle, and that's my attempt to share that we are taking feedback. We are in process. We are trying to get the information out before the the murmurs and the whispers and people know this or that, but it's a difficult task because I was again, high school principal. I would argue there's no such thing as a secret, right? And it's not that we're trying to be secretive, but as soon as we start talking about it, everybody wants to know all the things, and we're working through that. So I'm sharing that with you right now, that we felt like we were in a place with enough of the structure to share that with you, that we're working through transitions as our principals talk about, that we're working through guidance and what things look like. You know, I talked to a lot of people. You're going to be hard pressed to find more people collectively who are genuinely concerned about the well-being and the success of our students. And we're going to continue this process. And your feedback tonight will be shared as part of that process. And will be taken in, and it'll be, I believe that we'll come up with some solutions and some responses that I hope you will internalize as we listen when we're working through. I understand transition is difficult. We've been working with our staff on this. This is not easy for our staff either. But the reality is we're trying to address a lot of things that we need to. I think frankly kids deserve it. And at the same time, do that with you know, a finite amount of resources. And I don't want to keep going to that well. I just want to make sure that we understand part of this is trying to balance a lot of the things that we've heard over the last 3 years with also the needs of our kids, with also preserving what we value in our middle schools. And I think we've found, is it perfect? I don't know, but we're working towards that, and we will definitely take this input as we continue to evolve. I'm going to take this last question up and let everybody who feels like maybe they want to go can go, and I'll stick around for how long.
You somewhat answered it. It was just a question, and on will provide additional resources for an opportunity for acceleration. Is that you mentioned or I give concessions coming in, and then more, or will that is that math and yelling?
Yeah, so we serve through a gifted cluster model here. We're looking at that. That's part of the reason why we're building a schedule now to look at what services will look like. I would also share with you that we are trying to, there's more flexibility in the schedule to allow students to be accelerated. Here's an interesting fact, maybe sometime you'll hear this year. You know, we have kids that are accelerating through our program. You know, we had a 7th grader this year who would have qualified for national merit status on the PSAT had they been a junior. We have a student at Centerville High School who's graduating with a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from UC, but they're holding his diploma until he actually graduates from high school. Like, this is the world that we're in right now, and we have more conversations around that. And it's starting it earlier and earlier. And wherever you are, on whether you believe that's appropriate or not, there are families and there are kids and they are being successful. We want to make sure that we're supporting all kids. And I know that a lot of the conversation has been on different parts of the bell curve, I guess. But I will tell you that as we've illustrated, we've tried to preserve what we believe is impactful and helpful to all of our students, and for a long time has been successful. We've tried to preserve those pieces of our middle school program. So with that, I really do appreciate, I want you to know, as an educator, as people, as all of us are committed to serving our community, listening and sharing. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all your comments. We'll listen. We are listening. We will take this information back, and we're going to work towards the best solution that we can find for all of our students. So thank you for being here. If anybody else would like to come down and talk, I'm happy to sit around and talk. Thank you.